Hi, fans of Love Letters. This is Laura, and I'm just hopping on here to tell you that we are aware of the issues with our guest microphone this week. We did our best to troubleshoot while we were taping, but it isn't how we would have liked it to turn out. I hope you understand, and I hope that the content of this episode, despite the problems with the microphone, still makes you happy and brings you great joy. Thank you for listening.
It's about being supportive, right? And knowing how to give feedback so people can hear it. I feel really strongly about that. I think we immediately lose interest when somebody starts off with a negative. Like you either think, oh, they don't get me, or this thing sucks, or I suck, right? One of those three thoughts.
You feel very strongly about that, and it makes me wonder, I have a story. PJ might have a story of
I think we all have stories.
I think we all have that story of like the person who was so negative and then you never did the thing. What was the story of the time that somebody trashed your stuff and you thought, I will never repeat this again?
Hello, everyone. I'm PJ Manny, and welcome to Love Letters to the Future.
Hi, I'm Laura Faye Tenenbaum, and today we have Jos Linder as our guest. And I'm going to tell you the favorite thing about her. So I finished her book recently. It's called The Family Gene, A Mission to Turn My Deadly Inheritance into a Hopeful Future. And a lot of times when you read people's books, on the back there's a little about section, and it gives you this whole long spiel about their pedigrees and their degrees and all the amazing stuff that they've done. And it just says, she's a writer. I just love that so hard. And it gives you a sense of like her personality, in the sense of there's a little bit of humor, a little bit of like self-awareness in that, like, I'm not a big deal, even though perhaps she is a really big deal. Jos has 8 books to her name, and they're across genre. So we've got memoir, we've got several nonfiction books, we've got a fiction book, The Stoned Family Robinson. So the title will just tell you this lady may or may not have a sense of humor, right? Other books in Jos's fold are The Good Girl's Guide to Living in Sin. We could talk about that one all day, but we're not. Another one, Have Sex Like You Just Met, and The Purity Test. The other really cool thing is that she recently, just over a year ago, started this program, an online program called Prose Playground. And it's a community of writers. And I think that's what we're going to mostly talk about today.
Jos fits in really well with what this podcast is about, which are the old stories and the old ways of doing things and the old ways of making sense of the world that no longer work, and the new stories, the new myths, that we realize is our new reality. Jos, explain to everyone what Prose Playground is.
I have listened to this podcast. I love this podcast. I feel like, there's this idea of the future and where we're going and what we need. I always start talking about this by saying I'm not a joiner. Like, I'm not a person who joins a club, and now I am a person with a club that people have to join. What I saw was that there were a lot of gaps in ways that writers were being supported. I think that for anyone, you have a book, right, PJ? You have a book?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, many books, yes.
Yeah, and you probably know this, like, it's really hard to get attention when you have a book out. So one of the earliest ideas I had was that if we started a writing community, we could come together and support new work, new books that are coming out. That seemed like just a hole in our world. Like, why aren't we as writers coming together and saying, like, this is a great book that's coming out, talking up the book, and that way just more visibility, more books, more, people getting excited about reading things. So and then also the idea of writing things. I was a teacher for a long time, and still am, and a writing instructor, and I think that for me, I started to realize these communities, these little communities, were forming after the classes. People were staying in touch, joining writing groups, doing everything that they could to sort of continue on that community. And I thought, how can we harness this? I think writing groups are really valuable and important, and that is one of the things that we do at Prose Playground. But it's really just like the broader community, like saying I'm part of a 500-person writer collective, and we support each other, and we talk about work coming out, and we have events that are for writers and by writers.
Is that a new thing? Was there always writing communities? Did there used to be competition instead of support? Like, tell that story.
You go over all these hurdles when you publish a book. You have to get the book accepted. Once you write it, accept it again, then it has to come out. I thought the publishing house was going to promote, and I think and it was a big five publishing house. It wasn't even a small press, and I think that we realized, okay, this is a lot harder. I mean, I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago. My early experiences of publishing a book, I didn't feel like I had that much support. They always say, when you, after your first book, that publisher has first refusal. I never really encountered anyone wanting to publish a second book. I think that historically, when we think about a writer like Hemingway, or there was an association with a press, with a publishing house that was like an editor that worked with that writer, and I don't know that those relationships are happening as often. I think on occasion you find them, but it's rare. So you, as a writer, are going to a new editor each time. There isn't as much support from the publishing house. There have always been sort of writing communities, like communities of writers that work together and sort of amplified the work of each other. In my experience as a writer, almost all the writers that I'm good friends with that sort of have had these writing careers, we share an agent, because it started with one person who passed the agent to the next person, who passed the agent to the next person, and then so it really does sort of happen organically in this way. And so what I'm doing with Prose Playground, what we're all doing with Prose Playground, is really, we're all coming together. We all happen to be writers, people at different levels of writing, and we're sharing our resources, and we're sharing our knowledge, and we're sharing our support, and that can be enough to really keep people going and keep people inspired.
I think another thing that you do that's maybe different and innovative is the low threshold of entry and the lack of gatekeeping.
Maybe there are just fewer and fewer barriers to entry for a lot of things, but we are writing. And so the barrier to entry is that you want to be writing and you want to be a part of a writing community. Like, there's no one posting or commenting that isn't focused on writing, and that feels like a really important item. But then, and everyone has to be curious about writing. So there are certain rules and there are certain ideas. I would have no patience for somebody who came in and lacked kindness. That would be, that, Laura. Like, I'm very specific about how I want people to interact and engage with the writing. It's about being supportive, right? And knowing how to give feedback so people can hear it. I feel really strongly about that. I think we immediately lose interest when somebody starts off with a negative. Like, you either think, oh, they don't get me, or this thing sucks, or I suck, right? One of those three thoughts.
You feel very strongly about that, and it makes me wonder, I have a story. PJ might have a story of
I think we all have stories.
I think we all have that story of the person who was so negative and then you never did the thing. What was the story of the time that somebody trashed your stuff and you thought, I will never repeat this again?
The teacher, she's going through the stack of writing people had turned in, and she comes to one and she sort of mumbles to herself as she's scanning, and then she looks at everybody and she goes, cancer's over, and she throws the page, and this poor woman next to me with her head covered, a little pale, got even paler, slumped in her seat, and I was like, cancer's over. And I think for that particular instructor, she was thinking, I have to be a gatekeeper between the editors and the writers, and I want only things that are going to get published going out to editors. And then also, she's maybe thinking, I want to protect my writers from getting rejection, but I think you can't do that. You can never protect people from getting rejections. It's just impossible. And then also, I think what she probably accomplished there was she made this woman not A, throw that piece of writing away 100%, and then B, maybe make her put the pen down forever, right? That person was silenced in that moment. And there's just, it was so clear to me all of the many mistakes that were made in that particular moment.
I don't want to say it was a good story, but I think that was an illustrative story. Everybody who's listening right now can think of their own story of the time that they were criticized or shamed, or their work was put down by somebody in authority. For all the people who had a similar experience that happened to them, who said, I'm never doing this again, and walked away, you decided to push through and stay. So either what happened to you to turn you around so that you didn't just throw in the towel or throw in the pen, or maybe it was a personality trait. What is it about you that was just that your bio is Jos is a writer and you don't need to add all the extra fluff? That's what you are.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. But I did have a very specific 20s, you know, when I learning that I had a rare genetic disease, my father dying of this rare genetic disease, and how I think having sort of an awareness of mortality at that age, there's probably a part of me that gives fewer fucks, as you know, as they say. But I have had plenty of rejection. It's impossible not to. I think when you live a life as a creative, trying to make money as a creative, it's just part of what happens, which is, I think, why I want my writing community to not be that space. I don't want to be ranked or judged or criticized, and not to say that I don't want feedback that's useful. I mean, absolutely, I want feedback that's useful, and I really think that we are a community that does that. It's really about doing it in a way that we can hear it, so that we can sort of intake it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that's actually a great idea, and then apply it to our work and have better work. So I think that for me, it just became very important. How we give feedback actually really matters.
It's so interesting because I've spent my life either giving or taking story notes. And it's extraordinary how few people give good notes. And it's not at all about the content. It's about how they present it, the style. Do they couch it with, here's what I loved about your story? So you've primed the person to go, okay, they actually didn't hate me. What did you love about it? How did you connect with it? And then, I didn't understand this. I have a little bit of a problem with that.
I think of it like the first thing you said, where you offer what you liked about something, what's working about something. I always think of it like a bridge. Like you've built a bridge between yourself and that writer then. And then they can hear you when you have your opinions. Like this is not about not having thoughts about the work, not wanting to help. I always say to elevate the work.
I had this one class where the teacher recommended we start giving feedback by telling the writer what we thought the piece was about. And I find that as somebody who's receiving feedback, did my message get across? Because if the person kind of got what it was about, then it worked. They don't have to say, you suck or you're great. Just tell me what they thought it was about. And it's a really good way to know if your message landed or not.
However, I will also say writers are the worst judges on the planet of what their stories are about.
I'm holding up my hand and saying yes.
And the only reason I say this is you can never anticipate what an audience, a reader, brings to your story, that sees things that you didn't even know were there, that makes connections. You can't anticipate what people are going to bring, nor can you anticipate the connections they make.
Reviews are an interesting animal. I think about that a lot. I wrote a New York Times piece about, after my book came out, it's called My Search for Sadness, because I was sort of interested in the idea that I was able to write about such heavy stuff and talk about it really easily. The flurry of responses that were largely about like my poor husband it was so funny to me, and I made like for Hanukkah Christmas that year, I made him like a laminated little poster of all of the comments that were like, her poor husband.
I just have to back her up to say that, throughout the book she talks about being an optimist, but she's literally in the ER. She thinks she's having a stroke. And she's talking about yams and how much she wants to make sure that her dogs eat yams. There's a lot of humor in the optimism, and hopefully, PJ, you look like you're ready to ask a question. Hopefully it's about being optimistic.
What do you feel like you've gained for yourself from creating Prose Playground?
Everything I could possibly want as a writer. Like that's what this community has turned into, right? So it's, when somebody comes to me and says like, oh, I need this, I immediately, my brain starts to like click into like, how can we do that? How can we create that? So an example is a couple months ago, somebody was like, I need a NaNoWriMo, like the November novel writing, which is now defunct. I was like, okay, we're going to do something within the community like that. And I just got so many great responses. People were so excited, and people felt like they got a lot written. So in fact, what that has prompted is now we're going to do it again in July, and we're going to do it again in November. Prose Playground is in part like this environment of like, let's be writers, like let's be serious about this. So once a month we have a pitch party. So you can come, it's a Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, because that's when editors are sitting down at their computers and we meet and we pitch. And there are, writing groups where you have accountability and you have to turn stuff in. There's accountability partners if that works better for you. There's meetings with me. I do 2 a month, one with the people who are paid members and then one with the whole community, the free members. We do every other week there's a meeting with me and you come and talk about your writing and you talk about what's in your way. And for me, it's like, I think just even being in that environment, I'm also contributing. Like I go to we have a write-in every Friday where people come and write together, and I go and I write every Friday. So that makes me accountable and I show up and I do those things.
Well, that's the part that I find so powerful, because we think of writers as being like painters, the artist in the garret, all by themselves, struggling to create the work in isolation. And what these writers groups do is counter that narrative and say, no, you can do it together. Writers groups are so powerful. I believe that the whole idea of these communities can spread in a way that, I know we're withdrawing from virtual communities because in the post-COVID period, everyone wants to feel like they're interacting in real life again, but there's still such a power to them.
It opens it so much more broadly.
Do you find that with virtual groups that there's a kind of the map might be enormous, but it brings like-minded people together?
We have a lot of writing groups, so if you don't get along with people, we just move you. Because of that, because we have so many groups going on at any given time, and so many opportunities to sort of move people around. What we do is we kind of do 3-month, you commit for 3 months.
And can I just add, I don't think people don't like each other. It just might be that their writing styles don't sync up. You could love the person, but then they're not your writer.
I think also just typically in life, if like one person in your group isn't like super into it, the whole thing falls apart. It's just inevitable. So you need somebody who cares enough to check in, to make sure everyone's showing up, to know the schedule. So ours are all moderated. And then there's me, I also care, like I'm paying a little bit of attention. So far we haven't been able to make it genre specific, so you might end up with a speculative fiction person and that's what you're reading. I think that can be good. I like, my writing group is a mix of writers.
If you're confused by the plot and you got lost, then that's good feedback, because you have to say, hey, I was loving it and then I couldn't follow the thread, regardless of the genre.
My best beta reader was one of my dearest friends who does not like my genre. What value do you think this kind of community can offer people?
We're a creative animal, right? Like that's first and foremost. We should be creating. I think we're living at a time, and you guys talk about this a lot, where I think writers and artists and storytellers are what kept us going through the darkest time.
Yes.
I will never be a swimmer. The barrier to entry for swimming is way too much for me. Like I have to change my clothes, I have to get cold and then get warm. Like the number of things that have to happen before I'm exercising are insurmountable to me. But with writing, I mean, literally, like I can pick up my phone that's in my pocket all the time and start writing. There's a million ways to be writing. I don't have to change. I don't have to do anything. I'm just writing. So if anybody is kind of thinking, how do I create? How do I find my way of getting my voice out there? We allow anyone to join as long as you want to be a writer or want to write. This is the community and you can join us. It could be artistic. It could be serious. It could be political, whatever you want it to be, but we should all be doing it. And that's what I'm hoping that this community is. I see it doing it and I hope it continues to do it.
Just so everybody knows, you can swim in your clothes. You can also swim naked.
If I have a pool in my backyard, I will probably think about swimming more.
We all have access to writing. It takes you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to buy a pool.
We can already read, we can already write. We don't have to learn that.
Something I've also heard you say, and you can talk about this more, is how everybody gets to choose if they want to just write for themselves. Do you want to talk about the power of also deciding where to put your art or not?
So whether or not you ever want to publish or you feel brave enough to go out and get those rejections that are inevitable when you start putting work out in the world, you can just share work with like your writing group or your accountability partner, or or even just know that you've produced something and you have it now and you can hold it for as long as you need to till you feel like you're ready to share it. It doesn't matter in any way.
If you had one message for people listening to this podcast 10 years from now, what would you want them to know?
I think the whole thing is just that we're living at a time where creativity is threatened by AI and some technologies, right? We see it happening, or we are certainly aware that it could happen. And I just think I need to be creating, and I think everybody does. And so for me, I hope that it continues to grow and people continue to join and find ways to find their voices however they can, whatever that means to you. And if it ends up that you come and you write for 5 minutes and you're like, I really want to build things out of sticks or go swimming or whatever, do it, do your thing. But I think that it's really a smart move to find your voice. That's my, and I feel like you guys are saying that already, which is why I love this podcast.
That is a really good message, and maybe in the past that people were, I'm a farmer, or I have to clean this house or something, or I'm even a business person, and there wasn't room for literally every single human on this planet, as you're saying, is creative. And why not celebrate our own individual creativity with making things? I know what it's like to give back what I wanted. And I think like you wanted to have a community, and so you gave it back to the future. And that is a love letter.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great way to put it. I love that.
I love it too. PJ?
Thank you so much. This has been great. I hope it inspires new writers everywhere.
And come back and listen to this podcast where we have more fun and interesting people. And you can find Jos's books online anywhere books are sold.
Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.